Hello friends and welcome to Figure Study, where I'm taking a look at another Earthrise figure because I'm actually staying slightly current, but only slightly. In addition to Double Dealer, we're also going to be taking a look at the sort of recently released Spy Patrol 4-pack. Well, half of the 4-pack, because I only wanted to keep these two because they go with Double Dealer, and that is Knok and Skar. I completely understand and acknowledge the fact that these two are not actually needed for Earthrise Doubledealer. Unlike the G1 toy, these are purely accessories. They are not functionally necessary to transform Earthrise Doubledealer at all. But I kind of really wanted them to give it that kind of full, complete G1 feel. So I do think it's cool that you can still incorporate these two into Doubledealer's various modes, but they are absolutely not necessary. This is purely a cosmetic accessory add-on thing. It's not necessary at all. But that being said, I actually think they're really, really cool. So, what say we start things off by moving Double Dealer to the back here, and we can take a look at Knok and Skar. So let's start with Knok. From what I understand, he's just a kind of remold and redeco, maybe not even a remold, but a redeco definitely of the Siege/Earthrise humanoid cassette robot figure. So basically Rumble Frenzy, except different colors, possibly a different head. It's really hard to tell with Knok because his head is kind of nondescript looking. I mean, it's also tiny, but there's nothing hugely identifying in that head. It's just kind of like a blue-faced robot with a bike helmet. It does kind of stink that the visor and faceplate are both the same color, so there is some separation in the colors, but it's just, if the eyes were stood out a little better, I think that'd be nicer. But I do like the colors on Knok. Something about that red and silver and powder blue color, just, I don't know, it works really well, and the darker blue makes for a pretty decent accent to the, or not accent, but a decent contrast to the lighter blue that we've got. As a functional mold, it's fine. There's not a lot of posability. You just get like the arms going forward and out. That's pretty much it. Like the fists rotate in, but that's for transformation. He does have head rotation though, which kind of seen. It's tough to get going because the head's so tiny and it's a little snug, but it does work. And the legs can go forward, slightly back, out, and then you kind of have knees and sort of pseudo thigh swivels because of the ball joints there, but this guy is not super posable, but he's not really meant to be. He's way more posable than the G1 toy, but he's not going to be doing Iron Man landings or anything like that. That being said, let's bring in the G1 toy so we can take a look at them together. And color-wise, he's different, but like he does hit a lot of the same notes. I don't know if any of this is remolded. Looking at the chest, it does look like this is basically just a repainted Rumble/Frenzy chest. But deco-wise, it gets the point across with the colors, like the red limbs, the grayish chest, and then that face. The deco is the same. So I guess they were going for accuracy here, but I feel like it still would have been better if those eyes were picked out. It's a pretty decent approximation of the G1 toy, I think. So, let's do the comparison with their other modes real quick. And, okay. So, in some cases, the updated Knok does look similar. In other cases, he does not. All tucked up and folded around like this is pretty similar, but on the back here, you can see that, yeah, there's definitely not a lot of shared detailing here. This is obviously meant to be an engine. This is just kind of a shape. Anyway, going back to the robot mode, because I actually do want to show the transformation of this guy off later, we will put Knok back there. And now we can move on to Skar. And Skar, I like the detailing on Skar. There's a lot of really nice molded detail, especially inside the wings. I like the coloring that's going on here with like the kind of silver bits going out into the joints for the wings, and the yellow bat jumpsuit that he's wearing, which is kind of weird. And then the head is also very nicely molded with the eyes picked out. Nothing on the teeth, unfortunately. That would have been cool, but again, these are tiny accessory bots. I feel like it's fine. Plus, I could detail them up later if I wanted. It's a pretty effective bat. I like how he transforms. I like how certain things shift around to just kind of change the profile a little bit. It's pretty cool. Bringing in the G1 Skar, you can see that this is also pretty decent. G1 Skar kind of proportionally looks a little bit more like a tiny man who's dressed as a bat. He's got those extremely long legs, but he's still got the yellow jumpsuit. The molded detailing is definitely different though, but still, it's neat. I like that they were able to clearly evoke the older figure, even though this is not molded to be like this. Now, looking at their alt modes real quick, you can see that like with Knok, the accuracy is just not there. It is definitely not accurate to the G1 figure, but hey, it is what it is. So that is it for Skar. So now that we've got these two nice and looked at, let me transform them. And since they're so simple, I'll just transform them on camera and then set them off to the side so we can deal with them later. Okay, so for Skar, going to flip up his teeny tiny little bat feet, fold down his wings, and before hinging these up, I want to hinge the head back. It's on like a double hinge, so it kind of comes forward and then back, and then it rests up along the back here. Then these can fold in, and that turns Skar into a little rectangular box thing. So put him off to the side, and for Knok, I want to make sure that his head is straight, which it is, and then bring his arms up. So he's doing this kind of really awkward T-pose. Fold his fists in all the way, not just down like this. You want them in like that. Rotate his legs at the knee so that his feet are pointed inwards, and then bring this up and attach it to the side. And there's this little kind of hole here that this will sort of tab into. And that turns Knok into his little cassette shape mode, and we'll put him off to the side. And now we can look at Doubledealer proper. And Doubledealer is very cool. I like this figure a lot. He has the missile truck look of his G1 figure, which we will see because I can't actually do those comparisons, yay. This kind of feels a little bit more beefed up, in particular because he is covered in tiny weapon accessories, which I'm not super into the tiny accessories. It kind of feels like unnecessary padding that's just adding mass and potential cost to what's in the box, but it's okay. Primarily, he's got these little missile pods on the sides here, this kind of radar dish thing, and this little gun. And then along the back, this gray bit with the little black bits on the side there. Those are all mostly unnecessary accessories. Arguably, this bit is necessary, but yeah, it's not. I'm not a huge fan of the extra stuff. It's fine. It's inoffensive, I guess, but it just kind of sits there, and I just have to unpeg it all, and peg it back in when I transform them, and then figure out where I want to put everything, and it just seems like a bunch of unnecessary extra stuff. Speaking of which, let's remove this unnecessary extra stuff. One thing I will say in favor of these accessories is when you plug them up here, it does cover up the fact that his fists are plainly visible. It does kind of help to mask things a little bit, but here you've got his little gun accessory thing, that off to the side. Here is the little radar accessory thing, put that off to the side, and then here are his little missile pods that do seem to have notable fronts and backs. I believe the narrower bits are supposed to be the back, and those are supposed to be the fronts. But yeah, I'll put those off to the side as well. So now we can focus on just Doubledealer. There's a lot of stuff to talk about with this toy, my goodness. This is a pretty convincing looking missile truck. I like the colors here, this kind of slightly bluish dark green for the main part of the truck. The black wheels stand out pretty well. They're not 100% accurate to the G1 toy. They need to have some red trim on them, but I could paint that in later if I wanted to. There's some really nice molded detailing throughout here. The big missile, which we'll look at in a bit, is also very nicely detailed and actually painted. It's pretty chunky and hefty too. We'll see in the size comparisons, he's not tall for a leader class figure, but he's dense. Like, even with those extra bits of plastic that I feel like are kind of unnecessary, he's got some nice heft. Of course, he also has this big missile, which is a big missile just like the G1 toy, but they also added some extra detail and even painted some bits in. I do like the paint that they added here, like these kind of red, not quite fins going around the three sides there, and the silver and blue at the top here. That all looks really nice. One thing I'm not super sure of, though, is this clip right here. I'm not entirely sure what the purpose of that is. I may have missed something. It may be something that somebody else has covered in another video that I just haven't seen, but it's a little weird. It's not a problem, it's just weird. This gap here, where you think maybe that's where it clips in, it doesn't, because that gap is much bigger than the clip itself, so it just kind of rests. Whatever. I might as well go over his base mode. It's not really a base. For that, all we do is fold this down, and this, it's really not supposed to fold up like that. It's more meant to just fold down like this. But if you push hard enough, you can push it up, and I much prefer that because I feel like having this sticking out of the back of the truck just looks a little silly. You cannot rotate this around in this mode. Like, I thought maybe if you just flip this upside down and peg it in that way, everything will be fine, but it won't work because you've got these tabs down here, and those will butt into what's going on back here, so that just won't work. But anyway, to get him into his base-ish mode, you put that down so it's like a little ramp. These bits that are on ball joints swing down and out and act as like support struts, and then the missile just kind of angles up, and that's sort of his missile launching mode, I guess. It's not my favorite thing, but at the same time, it's not really intrusive either, so I can't really be mad at it. It feels a little pointless and just unnecessary, but it doesn't negatively impact the rest of the figure, so I really don't care. Alright, we've got 2 more modes to go through, so let's move things along here and do some size comparisons. Here he is with the standard deluxe crew, and you know, it's a leader class figure, so he is noticeably larger than a deluxe. That's good. But again, I need to emphasize the fact that he's dense. He feels weighty. Make of that what you will, I guess. Hooray for bumping the camera. But anyway, here he is with G1 Doubledealer, and yeah, unfortunately mine still has that issue where it kind of doesn't quite sit right. This is a little floppy, but here you can see them all together, and one of the big differences in terms of shape, let's say, is this bit on the back of the missile is sitting right here on Earthrise Doubledealer, as opposed to like down here where it just wouldn't fit on the G1 toy. Also, there's a bit more mass up here than down here, so it does kind of mask the back end of the missile a little bit. And then you can see what I was talking about when I was saying that there are some bits that are painted or tampographed onto the Earthrise toy that are meant to evoke the G1 toy, and you can also see the difference in the wheels and how there are the rims done up in red on the original toy. And yeah, I'd say pretty good. I mean, it's Doubledealer. It's kind of hard to make a Doubledealer that looks even a little bit like the G1 toy and have it not evoke Doubledealer, but still, I think they stuck with the design pretty successfully. And I almost forgot, but I remembered at the last second. Here he is with the duck tank. Alright, now that all that's out of the way, let us turn him into his first robot mode. So, you gotta pull this off and straighten this out. And this pegs in here and here. And this is what I was talking about when I said, like, if you try to plug it in upside down, it's not gonna work, because that's banging into this. But anyway, I'm just going to pull this off, straighten this out, and have that around like so. Put that off to the side for now. And now let's also remove the missile. And here we go. And here we have Earthrise Doubledealer in his bird thing mode, and this is weird, but I do actually really like that he has this. It's just something very entertaining about this. Definitely more involved than the G1 toy. Definitely some fiddliness here, and there are some things I kind of wish locked in a little better. Like these bits down here, these don't actually lock in. It's just friction holding those in place. And I mean, they do kind of snap into place. They just don't actually like tab or lock in anywhere. So you can fold those out if you're not paying too much attention. Also, the peg for the missile here on the bottom, it's not super tight. It's like if you peg it in towards the front peg on that panel, it's about as loose. So you've got two peg options down here, and either one is not great. But it does stay in. It's not going to fall out. Like that's the front one, peg into the back one. Like it doesn't shake out. It's just looser by a lot than I would like. This thing on the top here, I don't care for that. I know this is here to be like the bird tail, but it doesn't sit on very well. Those tabs that rest across the those little notches on the inside there, there's just not enough friction. Like it's not going to just fall off if you're, displaying the figure like this, but it's not on there particularly tight. And that's kind of a shame, or a lot of a shame. Actually, I'm going to pull this off again real quick because I'm going to arm this guy up with all of his junk. We're doing this in the opposite direction this time. We're going to put the stuff on him first and then do the comparisons. Anyway, this little bit down here is where you can put Skar. And that just pushes into this bit down here. And this will actually hold in pretty well. You can pull him up by getting a fingernail or something under here and just pulling up like that. And it comes out pretty nicely. He does stay in there pretty snug. And then this will just rest over that and help to keep that in place. And also when you plug in the missile, that will further keep Skar from popping out. So yeah, he's in there pretty good. Completely not necessary, as I said, but I do think it's cool that you can actually do this. Bringing in the rest of this stuff. There's so many ports around here, like here and down here and on the missile itself. Possibly, yeah, there's one on the back here. So you've got places where you can plug stuff. This is just where I plug things, but I plug the gun in here, plug the missile pods into these sides here, so then it kind of looks like the bird has missile pods underneath its wings. As for the radar dish, I personally like to plug it in on the top here. Before we attach this back to the bird mode, we're going to attach Knok in a way similar to how he's been attached in the past. So I flip down this little peg here and peg that into the back of the missile, or gun, whatever. And then slot that on top, and now we've got kind of a more classic Doubledealer armed up bird mode going. And yeah, this is cool. I mean, it's definitely weird, and it was weird in G1, but I do like this. And I like how so much of the figure's color changes to this purple now that he's got those enormous wings. The head on this is really great. It's very kind of techno-vulture with teeth for some reason, even like a little tongue in there. And I like the extra bit that they added here with the neck, where it compacts in like this for when you're folding things up, but it hinges out to give him more of an extended neck, and that also gives you the benefit of like the looking up and down. It's a pretty chunky brick of a bird with wings and a head. Alright, let's move him back here for size comparisons. Here he is once again with the standard deluxe squad, looking big and dense and well armed. I don't know what else to say about this. It's a robot vulture bursting out of a truck covered in guns. Here he is with his G1 counterpart, and there are definitely some interesting differences here. Color-wise, general shape-wise, it's kind of not that easy to tell that they're completely different. Just like in a general look at it if you're squinting kind of way. But it's really interesting how there's so much more bulk on the Earthrise figure. Like, you can't even see the missile tucked under there from this angle, but this one's like prominently just like right there. The Earthrise figure is actually, it kind of smushes in a little bit, which is a little bit of a tricky transformation step, but it does kind of mush it in a little bit, keep it from being too long. There's a Knok on the back there, and there's the chest plate with Knok tucked into it on the back there. And maybe this is why they painted Knok the way they did, as I'm looking at it. Because from here, with him set up like this, that turquoise on the side makes a lot more sense, because now looking at this, it's kind of a similar setup. So maybe that was the point all along, I don't know. The heads are actually very similar. Like, yeah, there are definitely some key differences here. The detailing's definitely different on the Earthrise figure versus the G1. The G1 has this ridge thing on the top of the head, whereas this one, it's still there, but it looks more robotic. They both have that like weird toothy vulture look with like the bags under the eyes and the beady black eyes, and it's interesting. It's an interesting pair. Doubledealer's a weird toy. And of course, here he is with the duck tank. Okay, one more mode to go. Let me get the junk off of this guy real quick. Okay, so now with that all out of the way, let's get rid of Knok. I keep calling him Knok. Let's get rid of Skar here. So like I said, you just pop him out like that. Move him off to the side, and now we are ready for Doubledealer's final mode. Alright, and here we have Earthrise Doubledealer in his robot mode without any of the extra stuff attached. And I really like this robot mode. He's stocky and chunky, and he just looks really, really good. I love the colors here. There's way more of that turquoise. It's a really nice accent. And it's also kind of interesting how the outer bits, like the arms and the legs from the knees down, are primarily this like much darker shades, and then he's much brighter towards the center, which I know is accurate to the G1 toy. It's just interesting. And we'll also get into how interesting some of these details are a bit when we get to the comparisons. But he's really, really cool. One thing that did kind of throw me off about this guy when I was looking at the initial photos was the head looked really tiny, but that's partially because I'm used to the G1 figure that has a proportionally enormous head. So there is that. This guy is really neat, and he cleans up surprisingly well. Yeah, he's got bird wings tucked in the back here, but they hide away pretty nicely. If you really wanted to, you could actually flare them out a bit. I mean, a bit. They can't go out much further than this unless you start de-transforming things, and if you de-transform things, then you have to move all this other stuff out of the way, so like you can kind of fake stuff if you if you give him like a really weird looking frame, but you can do it. Supposedly in the directions you're supposed to keep the wings folded flat like this, which cleans up a little bit more flat, but then that gets in the way of the waist rotation, and you can't fold the wings up like this in vehicle mode, so what's even the point then? And he does do the thing that a lot of people have talked about, where there are these panels on the shoulders here that are very difficult for me, at least, to get going, but you can pop those up and flip them around to give him Decepticon logos. And now he is a Decepticon in this mode. It's a small thing, it's, I think, kind of a superfluous thing, really, but I still appreciate that it's there, and it does make sense for Doubledealer, because, you know, he's a mercenary, so it's not beholden to one side or the other. I want to talk about the Easter egg with this guy now, because I am going to keep him like this for the rest of the size comparisons, but with Knok and Skar, you can incorporate them here, and it's really pretty neat. You can do a thing that you'd probably expect. You can toss one of the guys in here, and then just close this back up. And now he's got Skar inside his chest, and that makes him a Decepticon or whatever. But what's really cool is they added this extra bit of functionality, which I thought I wasn't going to even bother with, but once I got Knok and Skar, I was just like, this is really cool. There's this little engine piece down here that you can pull that out, and this can attach to the little bit that sticks out of Knok and Skar. So, you can attach it like this, put Skar in here, and then instead of closing it up, turn it around and put him in like that. And there it looks more like he's got the Powermaster in his chest with like the engine effect kind of working. It's not super great for Skar, but it does look good with Knok. I actually really like that. It's not quite right in terms of coloration, but I think it's cool, and it doesn't really affect the shape of the figure too much. And in terms of storing Skar, Skar can actually plug into the back here. Actually, this is a thing that I'm jumping ahead a little bit here, but like this thing will tab in here, and this kind of functions as Doubledealer's backpack, and it's fine, it exists, but Skar can peg into the backpack there, and it's a little wiggly, but it's not coming out. Like you can see, it does not want to come out without some, it's going to require some force to take that out of there. But you can tuck Skar along the back, you can have Knok in the front, and that's very reminiscent of the G1 figure. I really, really like that. That is so much fun. Based on that alone, that has made getting the Spy Patrol entirely worth it for me. And alright, so let's equip this guy properly. So, as I said before, this just kind of tabs into the slots on this panel here, and that holds pretty securely. Like, once that's in there, that's in there really good. And according to the directions, you're supposed to have these out, like either like that or like that, and that just looks lame. So I just fold them down like this. Keep them out of the way. They don't really interrupt the silhouette of the figure. Just do that, that's fine. For all of this junk, this is, again, see, this is what I'm talking about with how annoying this is, where I've just got to like take all this stuff off, put it back on. But what I like to do for these is plug them into his forearms. Unfortunately, because of the location of these pegs, they sit kind of far down on the forearms. I would have liked if the peg was more like up here, but it works. It's just not ideal. This plug onto his shoulder over, we'll plug it on over here. And now we can bring in this thing. So the missile, I'm going to plug in up here, but you can plug it into either shoulder or up here, but I prefer to plug it in here. For the gun, I actually like to take the smaller gun and plug it in here, so it just kind of makes this gun a little bit different looking in robot mode, and then that will tab into, or plug into, the fist. And that gun sticks out a long way, so it's kind of easy for it to like brush up against the floor. So you can't really hold it down. And that is Doubledealer all geared up. And yeah, this guy is very cool. I've already said this a bunch. I really, really like this, and the Knok and Skar Easter egg thing just does it even more for me. He's bulky, he's chunky, he's actually fairly nicely posable. I was kind of surprised at how well his knees work, because, the way he transforms, you'd think his knees would be a mess, but he gets almost 90. It's just these extra bits up here. I'll put that there. There we go. These extra bits are plentiful and kind of annoying, but that's just me. As for the head, he looks very Doubledealer. He's got that kind of telltale Doubledealer helmet if you ignore the Mickey Mouse ears. That also telltale Doubledealer turquoise face and red eyes. It took me a bit to come around to this just because I'm so used to the G1 toy, but this does work really well. I like how bright the face is inside that really dark helmet, and when you're looking at him further back, that dark helmet actually, weirdly enough, is the bigger contrast in terms of color, like up in the torso section. Yeah, he's got some black in the arms and the wheels and the shins there, but there's not a whole lot of black in the robot mode, so weirdly enough, for once, black is the color that stands out on the head. Just very nice sculpt in general. Like, look at all the detailing on this guy. It's all over the place, and a lot of the detailing on him is meant to evoke the G1 toy, which I think is really cool. So I guess let's get to the size comparisons so I can do that G1 toy comparison and you can see what I'm actually talking about. Here he is with the standard deluxe squad, and yeah, he's definitely a lot bigger than a deluxe. I appreciate the fact that he's not just significantly taller, but he's still significantly bulkier. Here he is with a couple of Siege Decepticons, that being Spinister and Astro Train. It's a bit of a weird comparison, I know, because Spinister is very tall for a deluxe and Astro Train is kind of short for a Voyager, even though he's a leader class figure. But here you can see how they all look together. Here he is with Siege Ultra Magnus, another leader class figure, and Ultra Magnus is a little bit taller at the head. I will admit that. He's a little bit taller, but in terms of just size and density, I think these both do a good job of kind of encapsulating the leader class price point, I guess we'll say. And getting into something a little bit more is speed. Move him over there. Here is Doubledealer with an actual Earthrise figure this time, that being Earthrise Optimus Prime. And now at long last I can bring in the G1 Powermaster Doubledealer figure, and this is an interesting comparison. It's interesting in my mind for a lot of reasons, not the least of which is the fact that G1 Doubledealer is actually taller, though I think proportionally Earthrise Doubledealer is a little better in that regard. Weight-wise, just going off of feel, Earthrise Doubledealer does feel a little bit heavier, but here's also where you can see like the G1 toy deco on the Earthrise figure that's like really interestingly well done. The detail on the legs, which we already saw, but then there's like the tampos down here versus the stickers here. The color placement with like the shoulders and the arms is there. You've also got these shoulder bits here that kind of evoke the same, like molding wise and color wise. It's a little smaller here obviously, but like similar to that sticker. And then you've got that yellow bit up there for up there. And the torsos are really interesting too. I like how they basically designed Earthrise Doubledealer so that it kind of looks like sculpting and color wise similar to where you've got Knok placed into the Powermaster port for the original toy. And then this chest section, very evocative of the chest plate here. These purple colors are definitely different, but I kind of like there being a little bit of purple in there because he is, you know, a mercenary, so it makes sense that he might have a little bit of Decepticon-y colors mixed in. And I really like these little details here where they have this black bit here that's actually molded, like you can see, it's got kind of this ridged, sort of semi-curved bit here, which is absolutely meant to evoke the ratchet joint for the head and neck assembly on the G1 toy. That's really neat. And also you can see these hinges here, these red hinges are being depicted here. It's really neat to me how they kind of took that detail from the original toy and worked it into the modern figure, and now it's become like a design element rather than just a hinge. Looking at the heads side by side, you can also see how, as weird as it feels to have a Doubledealer without the Mickey Mouse ears, those Mickey Mouse ears are not actually technically part of Doubledealer's head design. Those are just the bits designed to hold the missile. So if you ignore those, that's actually a lot closer in terms of design. I feel like maybe they could have done the Mickey Mouse ears thing, but I can understand why they didn't. I want to say that the Earthrise Doubledealer figure is absolutely made from a place of love because it just so wonderfully captures a lot of design elements from the G1 toy. Of course, I imagine you could say that for a lot of other figures that I don't have G1 toys to make comparisons to, but I gotta work with what I got. And here he is with the duck tank. So that is gonna do it for Earthrise Doubledealer. As I've said many times, I really like this figure. I mean, he's a cool figure on his own, but I feel like that added combination of adding Knok and Skar, it just catapults this a little bit higher for me because now he's got kind of a G1 throwback function, even though that's technically not like it's in the figure, but it's not required, and he doesn't actually come with Knok or Skar, so it's sort of just an option that you pay extra for. But I really like that functionality. I think it adds a little something to him just in terms of playability, and aesthetically it mixes things up a little bit more. I love that that's an option. And I also love that you can just tuck either of the Spy Patrol dudes into his chest and like not do the engine thing and just rotate it around and close it up, and now he's got them in his chest, but it's not actually like visible. I just love all those options. And it's funny because when I got Doubledealer, I was originally like, okay, I'm gonna get Doubledealer because I have the G1 toy and I really like the G1 toy. This one looks okay, so, you know, let's go for it. Then once I actually got him, I was just like, this is actually a really good figure. So, very glad I got him, but also, as I said, very glad that I ended up getting the Spy Patrol guys to go with him. But that is going to do it for my way too long talking about Transformers Earthrise Doubledealer. What do you all think of this guy, and or the Spy Patrol buddies that you can use with him? Whatever your thoughts, feel free to chime in down below. I always enjoy hearing from you all, and remember, art is more than meets the eye.